In the personal story segment tonight, President Obama using scare tactics about contraception and abortion yesterday during a campaign speech at a New Hampshire high school. The president seized on the so-called war on women fear by telling the audience that a failure to subsidize abortions and contraception would be tantamount to cutting off those services.
You can decide that instead of restricting access to birth control or defunding Planned Parenthood, we should make sure that in this country, women control their own health care choices. That's up to you.
Joining us now from New York is Alexis McGill-Johnson. She's the executive director of the American Values Institute. Okay, Alexis, so he does a campaign event, one of thousands, it seems. Yeah. But he was in New Hampshire yesterday. He's moved on from there, but he's in New Hampshire yesterday. And he goes and gives this talk and invokes the war on women again analogy that we heard about last month, the month before, and tries to ride that with the students, many of them very young. You can see the people behind them. Some of them look like they were 14, 15 years old. Why is it appropriate for the president to talk about sex and so forth in front of a high school audience?
Well, first of all, Laura, he was talking at a high school, not a preschool. And many of the young adults I know, they are getting ready themselves to go to the voting booth. They are getting ready to go to war. I think they are perfectly okay to have a conversation about reproductive health and contraception.
When you say reproductive health, that includes obviously topics regarding sexuality. And I know your group's called the American Values Institute. Indeed. And I would ask you, do you think it's a value, a worthy value for parents to be able to make those decisions about when sexual activity is appropriate among young people? Is that a value worth protecting?
I think the reality is that most parents and most children should be having this conversation together, right? I think that is absolutely
that's
ideal.
Not what I asked.
That is
that's
the value.
Not what I asked.
No, let me go back to your question. I think you're right.
Some parents don't agree with you, though, right? That's your opinion. I respect your opinion.
Okay, no, I understand. Look, I think that there is a value in parents and children having this conversation together. I think the reality is many children do not have that conversation with their parents, and that we need to provide better sex education in school, because it's not like if they're not having the conversation, they're not having sex. So,
well, first of all, that's actually a tautology. I don't think that's actually true. Because they're not having the conversation, ipso facto, they are having sex. That doesn't make any sense. However,
what I'm saying is they're still having sex, regardless of whether or not they're having the conversation. And what we want them to do is, if they are having sex, we want them to be better informed about it.
Right. Not all high school students are having sex. So your point is factually incorrect. The value of condoning waiting for sex until either you're older or until you're in a marital relationship. Do you think parents have the right to inculcate into their own children those values?
I think they have the right to do that. And as a parent, I have the right to talk to my two daughters candidly about when I think they might be best able to deal with the emotional consequences of sex and relationships. Right. I agree with that completely.
Okay,
However,
so good. So parents have some rights
here, I think I can also instill with them the ability to evaluate a wide variety of information. So if they're getting information, sex education from their peers, from their high school students, teachers, from their, from the internet. It's not like we can keep our kids in a bubble anymore.
Right. Well, I think parents want to guide their children as they see fit, as parents have the right to do, or are supposed to have the right to do.
Absolutely.
And is it the role of the President of the United States to get into those issues in a high school setting? Obviously, he goes to a high school. It doesn't mean all the people there were high school students, although there were a lot of students standing behind him, as you see in that video. A lot of young people, especially in the upper area on the left, those young men. So is that appropriate venue for him to be discussing the so-called war on women when, in fact, a lot of Americans, including right now a Fortnight for Freedom, is going on, meaning Catholics and other denominations say no to the president's cram down on contraception, and we have to pay for contraception. And if we don't pay for contraception, that means people are being denied access to contraception. You don't believe that, do you?
Yeah, actually, I do. I think that that contraception is a huge part of women's health services, right? I think that women's health services are in large part preventive health services, and contraception is a huge part of that. And the minute we begin denying access two organizations like
How is that denying access?
Because we're talking about defunding Planned Parenthood, right? That's what implicit. The one thing that Obama was saying, and you're pulling out one line in a larger speech around economic opportunity for the middle class.
Well, that's the subject of this
That
segment.
is the subject of the speech, but the reproductive issues in that speech also speak to economic opportunity. The cost of an unintended pregnancy. The cost of an unintended pregnancy.
Well, it's not a disease, though. A pregnancy is not a disease.
No, it's not. But an unintended pregnancy does affect a woman's opportunity, lifetime opportunity.
But Alexis, I mean, does the government pay for aspirin and Advil when women have cramps? I mean, that's a health issue. They don't pay for Advil, but that doesn't mean that the government is denying access to Advil.
The government does support many things related to preventive health services, and I think that prevention. We also know an ounce of prevention is a pound of care, right?
Right. Well, the problem is, this argument falls on itself because there's a right to travel, but the government doesn't pay for my Acela train to New York. It doesn't mean it's denying my right to travel or my access to travel.
Laura, come on.
It just means they're not paying for it.
It's access
of the cost does not equal free.
Our health care depend on our ability to
we all want free stuff, Alexis, but that's not the way the world works, and that's not a war on women.
Shouldn't we be preventing it?
$9.99 a month at Walmart.
Things
Alexis,
that will drive up our health care? Shouldn't we?
Is $9.99 a month at Walmart too expensive for most people to pay?
It's not $9.99 a month. It could be upwards of $70 a month. Yes, when I was uninsured, $70 a month. That's actually quite a significant amount in people's budget.
Not what it costs now, apparently, but we appreciate it. And up next,